Only 2% of people have an IQ above 130, but forget everything you think you know about intelligence. It's not about math skills or perfect grades. The real signs are completely different. If you recognize 4 or more of these, there's a strong chance you're in that 2%. The first sign? It actually makes life harder, not easier. Sign number 1. You overthink everything. This isn't just wondering what to have for dinner. People with extremely high IQs analyze every possible outcome before making decisions. Their brains naturally process information at multiple levels at once. When someone asks a simple question, their mind immediately explores 10 different angles. They consider context, hidden meanings, and long-term consequences. A conversation that takes most people 2 minutes to process can occupy their thoughts for hours. The problem? It makes everyday choices exhausting. Picking a restaurant becomes a complex decision involving dietary preferences, social dynamics, and even the psychological impact of the environment. Most people don't understand why someone would struggle with something so simple. But here's what research shows. This constant analysis actually protects them from making impulsive mistakes. While it creates stress, it also leads to better long-term outcomes in relationships and careers. Sign number 2. You prefer being alone, but not because you dislike people. People with high IQs often choose solitude, not from loneliness or social anxiety. Their brains need time to process the constant flood of information they absorb every day. Social situations drain them faster than others. They pick up on subtle cues most people miss. Body language, tone shifts, underlying tensions in a room. Their minds work overtime analyzing these details without even trying. After spending time with others, they need hours alone to recharge. This isn't antisocial behavior. It's a psychological necessity. Studies show that highly intelligent people feel less satisfied with frequent socializing. Unlike most people, they function differently. They find deep satisfaction in solitary activities: reading, creating, problem-solving. These activities allow their minds to work at full capacity without the noise of social obligations. Friends and family often misunderstand this need. They interpret it as rejection or coldness, but it's actually how these individuals maintain their mental clarity and emotional balance. Sign number 3. You question everything, including yourself. Most people accept information at face value. They hear something and move on. But people with extremely high IQs can't do this. Their brains automatically search for flaws, contradictions, and alternative explanations. They constantly ask why and what if. Why does this rule exist? What if the opposite is true? Why do I think this way? What if I'm wrong? This trait makes them excellent problem solvers. They see gaps in logic that others miss completely. They challenge assumptions that everyone else accepts without thinking. But it comes with a cost. Self-doubt becomes a constant companion. While others feel confident in their choices, highly intelligent people second-guess themselves. They see too many possibilities, too many ways things could go wrong, too many angles they might have missed. In relationships, this creates complications. They question their partner's words, looking for hidden meanings that might not exist. They analyze their own feelings until simple emotions become complex puzzles. At work, they might struggle with imposter syndrome. Despite clear evidence of their abilities, they focus on what they don't know instead of what they do. Psychologists have found that people with higher intelligence tend to overestimate how much others know and underestimate their own knowledge. They assume everyone thinks as deeply as they do. So when they find an answer, they assume it must be obvious to everyone else too. This constant questioning prevents them from becoming overconfident, but it also prevents them from recognizing their own value. Sign number 4. You notice patterns everywhere, even when you don't want to. The human brain loves patterns, but for people with extremely high IQs, this ability works on overdrive. They spot connections between seemingly unrelated things. A conversation from last week links to a news article they read today. A person's behavior reminds them of a pattern they noticed in a completely different situation years ago. Their minds create webs of associations automatically. They can't turn it off. This makes them incredibly good at predicting outcomes. They see where things are heading before others notice anything unusual. In business, they anticipate market shifts. In relationships, they sense problems brewing long before any obvious signs appear. But this constant pattern recognition has a dark side. They see negative patterns too. They notice when someone's behavior shifts slightly. They pick up on inconsistencies in what people say. They remember contradictions from months ago that everyone else has forgotten. This makes it hard to trust people. They collect data points without meaning to. 3 small lies over 6 months become a pattern of dishonesty. A few canceled plans become evidence of disinterest. Sometimes they're right, and this protects them. But sometimes they see patterns that don't exist, finding meaning in random coincidences. This leads to anxiety. They worry about things that might never happen because they've spotted a pattern that suggests trouble ahead. Sleep becomes difficult because their mind won't stop finding connections. One thought leads to another, then another, building chains of logic that stretch for hours. Sign number 5. You get bored incredibly easily. Most people can tolerate repetition, the same job, the same routine, the same conversations. But for people with high IQs, repetition feels like torture. Their brains crave novelty and complexity. Once they understand something, they lose interest fast. A task that challenges them on Monday becomes unbearable by Friday. At work, they excel during the learning phase. New projects excite them. Complex problems energize them. But once the challenge disappears, so does their motivation. They jump from hobby to hobby. Photography, guitar, coding, painting. They dive deep, learn quickly, then move on when mastery feels close. In conversations, they struggle with small talk. Discussing weather or weekend plans feels pointless. They want to explore ideas, debate concepts, understand how things work. Surface-level chat makes them restless. Relationships suffer too. The comfortable routine that makes most couples happy leaves them feeling trapped. They need partners who grow and change alongside them. Psychologists link this to something called need for cognition. People with high intelligence have a deep psychological need for mental stimulation. Without it, they experience a specific type of discomfort that others don't understand. Friends call them flaky or unable to finish things. But they're not quitting because it's hard. They're quitting because their brain has already extracted all the learning it can get. Sign number 6. You struggle with things that seem easy for everyone else. This sounds backwards, but high intelligence doesn't make everything easier. People with extremely high IQs often fail at simple tasks. They forget appointments. They lose their keys. They struggle to follow basic instructions that have multiple steps. This happens because their minds work differently. While others focus on the task in front of them, highly intelligent people think in layers. When someone asks them to complete a simple form, their brain doesn't just fill in the blanks. It questions why each field exists. It considers the implications of the data. It wonders about the system behind the form. This mental branching makes simple tasks complicated. They also struggle with tasks that require following rules without understanding why. Their brains resist blindly obeying instructions. They need to understand the reasoning first. Without context, they feel stuck. Practical matters become surprisingly difficult. Paying bills on time, keeping track of appointments, maintaining a consistent schedule. These require the kind of straightforward thinking that doesn't come naturally to them. But remembering to eat lunch? That's genuinely hard. This creates shame. Society tells them they should be good at everything. When they excel at difficult tasks but fail at simple ones, they feel broken. Like something is wrong with them. The truth is, their brain prioritizes differently. It saves energy for complex thinking by letting automatic tasks slip through the cracks. Sign number 7. You feel like you don't fit in anywhere. This isn't typical social awkwardness. It's something deeper. People with extremely high IQs experience the world differently than those around them. And this gap creates isolation that's hard to explain. They walk into a room and immediately feel out of sync. Conversations move too slow. Jokes don't land the same way. They literally process information at a different speed and depth. When they share an idea, people look confused. When they stay quiet, people think they're distant or uninterested. There's no comfortable middle ground. They learn to hide parts of themselves. They dumb down their vocabulary. They pretend to care about topics that bore them. They laugh at the right moments even when nothing feels funny. This masking becomes exhausting. They're constantly performing a version of themselves that fits better with others. But it never feels real. Finding peers becomes crucial but difficult. They need people who think at their level, who can keep up with rapid topic changes, who enjoy exploring complex ideas just for the sake of it. But these people are rare. Statistics show that only about 2% of the population has an IQ above 130. The higher you go, the smaller that percentage becomes. So they spend most of their lives feeling like outsiders. Not because they reject others, but because genuine connection requires a certain compatibility of minds. When they finally meet someone who gets them, the relief is profound. One real conversation can sustain them through months of surface-level interactions. Sign number 8. You have an unusual relationship with rules and authority. People with high IQs don't automatically respect authority. They respect competence and logic. When someone tells them to do something, their first instinct is to ask why, not to be difficult, but because their brain needs to understand the reasoning before it can cooperate. If the rule makes sense, they'll follow it perfectly. But if it seems arbitrary or illogical, they'll struggle to comply, even when there are consequences. In school, they question teachers who can't explain their methods and challenge pointless assignments. Teachers label them troublemakers, but they're just trying to understand. At work, they clash with managers who lead through hierarchy instead of expertise. Being told, "because I said so," doesn't motivate them. It frustrates them. They need to see the bigger picture. How does this task connect to the goal? Why this method instead of another? What problem are we actually solving? When they understand the purpose, they become exceptional employees. They find better ways to achieve the goal. They spot inefficiencies others miss. But when forced to follow processes that don't make sense, they disengage completely. In relationships, this shows up as resistance to social norms. They question why certain traditions exist, why people say things they don't mean, why politeness sometimes requires dishonesty. This doesn't make them rude. It makes them selective about which social rules they follow. They'll respect boundaries that protect people, but they'll ignore rules that exist only because that's how it's always been done. Sign number 9. You're extremely sensitive to your environment. Most people can work anywhere. Coffee shops, busy offices, noisy rooms. They tune out distractions and focus on their tasks. People with high IQs can't do this as easily. Their brains process more information from their surroundings. Every sound, every light change, every movement in their peripheral vision. It all registers. A flickering light that others don't notice becomes unbearable. Background music meant to be soothing feels intrusive. The hum of an air conditioner becomes impossible to ignore. Their brains have what scientists call sensory sensitivity. They detect stimuli at lower thresholds than average. And once detected, their minds struggle to filter it out. This affects where they can work, sleep, and relax. They need quiet spaces, controlled lighting, minimal interruptions. Open office layouts destroy their productivity. The constant noise and movement overload their senses. While others thrive on the energy, they feel drained within hours. They also pick up on emotional atmospheres instantly. When there's tension or hidden upset, they sense it. This makes them empathetic, understanding feelings before others recognize them. But it also means they absorb negative emotions from their environment. A stressed coworker affects their mood. A tense meeting leaves them exhausted. They carry other people's emotions without meaning to. They need time in calm, controlled spaces to reset their nervous system. Without it, they become overwhelmed, irritable, and unable to think clearly. Sign number 10. You think about thinking. This is called metacognition, and it's one of the strongest markers of extremely high intelligence. Most people just think. They have thoughts and react to them. But people with high IQs observe their own thinking process. They notice when their mind jumps to conclusions and catch their own assumptions. During conversations, part of their brain monitors their communication. Did that come out wrong? Why that particular word? This creates a strange split in their awareness. They're inside the experience and outside it at the same time. When they feel an emotion, they also analyze why they're feeling it. What triggered this? Is this reaction reasonable? What past experience is influencing this moment? This constant self-observation has benefits. They learn from their mistakes faster. They adapt their communication style. They understand their own patterns and can work to change them. But it also prevents them from being fully present. They can't just enjoy a moment. Part of their mind is always watching, analyzing, commenting. In arguments, they argue with themselves as much as with the other person. They see valid points on both sides. They question their own position even while defending it. This makes them excellent at growth and self-improvement. But it also makes spontaneity nearly impossible. They can't turn off the observer, the part of their mind that watches everything, questions everything, analyzes everything. It runs constantly, like background software they can't close. Most people experience flow states where they lose themselves in an activity. Highly intelligent people reach flow less often. Their observer rarely stays quiet long enough. How many of these signs did you recognize in yourself? 4, 6, all 10?